What's up, guys? I wanted to make this video for a really long time, and I was kind of waiting till the tier kind of came to an end, and till the raid scene started winding down, until we got to see what the next expansion was going to be, etc., etc. But probably the most common question I get asked every single time I stream, I get probably 1 or 2 emails a week on this subject of, Nash, how do you join a top rating heroic guild? How do you become a player who ranks in the top 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 100, whatever it is? How do you become that player, and how do you get into groups like that? Because it's a very daunting task, and I'll tell you that it's a very long progression road. Okay, you don't just turn on the game and become a heroic level top tier raider in World of Warcraft. So what I want to do is go through kind of the progression of at least what I've gone through in my progression so far in this game, and go through exactly what I've had some tips and tricks from some of the guys who are in top guilds in the world, and just some ideas to throw up you guys so that you feel a little bit more comfortable in your progression as a WoW player and as a PvE raider, and how to really up your game. Okay, the first thing is you have to start somewhere, right? So the best place to start, and I wish I could tell you differently, but it's honestly the forums. You have to go onto the forums to find a guild that is recruiting, especially if you're a brand new player. You need to get into LFR, get into flexes, hone your craft, and really stand in front of practice dummies. Make sure that you know your rotation inside and out. You can do it while moving. Study the mechanics of fights so that you know them forwards and backwards. The biggest thing that you'll run into is learning curves, and how long does it take, how many wipes does it take before somebody figures out a mechanic. Okay, this is what makes a huge difference as you're just learning the game. Anybody can sit at a training dummy and do top DPS, okay? Anybody can push their DPS to the limit if they have enough time to sit there and practice. The key is the best raiders in the world know how they change their talents, how they test out different mechanics, how they can cheese certain things with class mechanics, and they also know how to do top tier DPS while doing mechanics and while on the move. The biggest thing that you'll see is, you'll hear of this thing called tunneling, where people will die because they're tunneling, which means they're just staring at the meters, they're staring at their bars, whatever it is they're staring at, they're not being raid aware. And the top players in the world are extremely raid aware. They know exactly what's coming. They know exactly what the boss is going to do. They're 10, 15 seconds ahead of the fight. They know where they're going to move next. Their positioning of where they're going to be and where they're going to be able to do the top DPS, as well as be in the correct position for their raid and for the strategy that their raid leaders implemented. Okay, all these things they already know, and as they get more comfortable with the fight, they pick them up quicker and quicker and quicker. And as you play the game longer, you will just eventually figure that out. It will just get easier for you to do this. The next big thing, okay, so forums, right? So you got to go on the forums. Make sure that you can find a raid team that fits your times, fits what you are looking for. Obviously, don't try to bite off more than you can chew. The biggest thing when looking for guilds is look for guilds that are, if you're just starting out, that are into normals, that are, maybe by the end of the tier, they're just clearing normals, or they're barely stepping foot into heroics. Some stepping stones so that you have something to base off. Okay, the next thing that you need is World of Logs. You need to have evidence that you're not a terrible player, okay? The biggest thing that you're going to find is guilds are willing to give you a chance if they can go through your logs and say, okay, this guy has the correct uptimes, he's really doing a great job with mechanics, he's not dying, he's keeping the correct buffs up that he needs, he's casting the right amount of spells that he can cast with the gear he has. The only thing that's really holding this guy back is gear. The current raid team that he's on, he's typically in the top 2, top 3 on the meters, depending on the fight. He's always, has high uptime. He seems to not die to stupid mechanics. He's consistent with his attendance. These are all things that top raid leaders are looking for when they're recruiting people, okay? When you app to a guild, if you don't have World of Logs or some kind of system that says, okay, this is what I can do on this fight with this gear, this is what I'm using, these are all my uptimes, they can go through and see, Are you a raid-aware player? Are you not a raid-aware player? Well, why weren't you in raid this day and this day, and you're consistently missing this day every week? Is there a scheduling conflict? Is that why you're looking for a new guild? There's a lot of questions that can be answered by World of Logs, and there's a lot more risk that you can take on a player based on World of Logs. Okay, but this is a huge, huge part in upping your game and really taking the next step in your personal progression as a PvE player is, how much time are you willing to commit to it? Can you find a guild that works with the times that you can play the game? And what's their progression? Do you mesh with them well, etc.? Now, Blizzard has gone leaps and bounds and will continue to go leaps and bounds as we go into the Warlords of Draenor with this aspect, okay? All current content is going to be cross-realm except for Mythic mode, obviously. So what you're going to be able to do, especially if you're a player who's just kind of starting out and you want to kind of progress and really push yourself to the maximum level, if you're looking at a guild that fits your times, they can actually trial you without you having to spend the real-life money to transfer over, because if you're switching from Horde to Alliance and server changing, that's $55 right there. So you want to make sure that if you're going to spend that kind of money and put that kind of dedication into this raid group, that you fit well, that they're going to like you, you're going to like them, that the way that the raid is led is appropriate, that all these things are appropriate going forward. And in Warlords of Draenor, you're going to be able to do that. Now you can do it with Flex, but again, Flex doesn't really test you as much as I think the new style of raid will. So it really allows raid teams to kind of get a feel for players, find out what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, where they need to improve, etc. And this will also allow, I believe, more players to get into this top tier of raiding as they become better and more skilled at their class. Now, the next thing that you need to understand is networking. Okay, so whenever you're in a guild, the easiest way to get into another guild is always, make friends, keep contacts, get to know the players in your raid team who are good players, whether they're extremely knowledgeable about the game or whether they are just monsters on the meters, whatever they are. Get to know these people and, stay in contact with them, try to pick their brains. Networking also means, getting on Twitch and, maybe finding streamers who are in PvE and who are constantly, going through different progression, because there's always PvE streams with guilds at so many different levels. I mean, from Method down to, Last Word, it's everywhere in between. You'll find guys who are literally just putting on flex modes, normal modes, starting into heroic modes. You'll find streamers of any kind and go in there and, maybe network with some of those people and find out what their guild's all about. Do some of these things. Anything that you can do to kind of broaden your fan base to where if somebody says, oh, our guild's looking for this, if you're the person's name, if your name is the one that pops out of that person's mouth, they might have just found you a raid spot. I know that's how I actually got into Last Word, was due to Aki, because Aki had raided with them for a long time before. And then when our old guild broke up, I was kind of floundering for a spot. There's a couple places I could have gone, but the times just really sucked. So when I took that couple week break, that was when I was approached when one of their mages was gone. Then I filled that spot. And this is the way things work, okay, is you always want to be making sure that you're friends with good players who are friendly people. You're always trying to help people out, because the nicer you are, the more you're going to end up getting back. And I know that sounds like the golden rule, and I'm not trying to be cheesy, but it is the truth. The other things that you need to know is it is a time sink, okay? You will have to put in the time. You can't just go in, raid for one tier with somebody and say, okay, I'm way better than these people, I'm going to move on to a newer and better and higher guild. Now, you can do that, but a lot of times that skill will catch up with you. As you progress into higher tiers of raiding, you start to run into players who have been playing for 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 years, even up to 9 years of playing this game. So they have more intimate knowledge of every class than you do, and as you become a better player, understanding how other classes work, how your raid is set up, what the raid leader's strategy is. Don't just say, okay, what do I have to do for ranged? Okay, that's what I'm going to focus on. Obviously, you're doing that, but you're constantly being able to soak in your surroundings. You're being able to tell what's going on in a raid, what the strategy is of the raid, where the raid leader's coming from when he's explaining a mechanic, so that you know where you can go, where you can't go, where things are going to be safe, how to set up certain cooldowns, etc., etc. The other thing that you need to understand is wipes are learning tools, okay? Every time you wipe, you should be better than the previous attempt. You should always be going, okay, well, you know, I'm going to try this here, or I'm going to, maybe if I hold my cooldowns for this area because we seem to be having trouble with these ads, or I really need to switch DPS quicker and get onto this and make sure I'm interrupting this, or my healing cooldown needs to come out just a little bit sooner so that I make sure I'm ready to go when that big damage comes out. Is my tanking cooldown ready to go for the magic or the physical damage that's coming out? What is going on? Is there anything I'm losing threat on? Etc., etc. Whatever class or spec you're playing, every wipe you need to be saying, how can I improve this next attempt? How can I get better so that I'm not the weak link? Because that's the biggest thing in any guild, is you don't ever want to be the weak link. You want to be the strongest player in your raid. You want to be an asset, so that way when push comes to shove, you know that you're not going to lose your raid spot because you're an asset to your raid group. And as you progress up through the ranks, you will get more and more competitive. You'll get better as a player, and you will perform better. And that brings me to my next point, which is competition. Okay, the reason that a lot of people will raid 25-man is because there's interclass competition. So whether it be gear separating you, whatever, you can always see, you know, what's this guy doing? Am I consistently beating him? Is he consistently beating me? Why? You have somebody to bounce ideas off back and forth, etc., etc. So honing your class becomes a lot more in depth as you get into this higher level of play. And I just wanted to make this video to kind of explain what your progression should be if you're trying to become a top tier raider in World of Warcraft. A lot of people say that they want to, but they don't really know where to start, or they say, okay, I'm going to start raiding, and then they try to, you know, they app to 10 different guilds, and none of them really want you because you don't have anything to back up any of your information. So this is where you start, guys, is World of Logs, networking, and practice, okay? Anybody can have talent, but this is a video game. Practice and skill and honing your skills are going to go way farther than your just ability to play video games. Everybody in this game has the ability to play video games. It's the matter of who puts in the time, the research, the effort into making themselves a better player, and that's how you're going to progress in this game. I hope this information helped you guys. If you have any other questions or any other tips, please leave them in the comments below to help other people who may be trying to progress through their PvE raiding experience of World of Warcraft, or any real PvE experience in any MMO. These things really do go hand in hand no matter which game you're playing. So keep that in mind as well, that as new MMOs come out, you know, these are tips that will help you throughout. And make sure that if we're leaving comments for other tips, that we're leaving them more broad for general MMOs as well, or WoW specific. But let's try to make this this video and the comments about becoming a better raider, and some of maybe your guys' stories and tips and tricks on how you've maybe progressed guilds or progressed progression in your own PvE adventures. Hope you guys like this one, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.